don't do the most, but I do a lot. I'ma make a toast, cause we still alive. No big, I feel like Pac. I shoot a shot. I'm coming in.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to East Coast Rivals. To my right, Jacob Southpaw Siesla, and to my left, who's back in the office, Scott Brady.
In the house. Hey, he's finally back.
It feels good to be back. What's up, Scumbag? How you been?
I've been great, man. You walking pretty fine.
Good to see you, yeah. Back to work, I hear?
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know, they said they were going to have to amputate when you first told us about your knee.
It's amazing how things change.
What a recovery.
The power of modern medicine.
Wow. Hope Dak Prescott has the same recovery.
He's going to need it.
Yeah, he is.
I sent him T's and P's the other days.
Oh, Jesus. All right, Scott, let's start off with you, bud, and let's have our last baseball segment for a while. World Series is over.
The Dodgers have they are the World Series champions.
You sound excited.
I fucking hate it. It only took them like 20,000 tries, having the highest payroll for the last 8 years, but in a shortened season as well. The biggest thing to take away from that game is analytics, whatever your thought may be on it, is actually hurting the game more than it is helping the game. This postseason for the Rays, they've used the relievers more than any other team in MLB history. And you could see the effects in the World Series where their bullpen was burnt out. To me, they pulled Blake Snell after 75 pitches because they were going off analytics, which is not right. They should have kept him going, and because the next three guys, he was striking them out and taking care of them. You don't do that. You worry about that. You get to a Game 7. You worry about this game right now. And they didn't do that, and I ultimately ended up biting them. Hopefully some changes in baseball will come that you can't rely on analytics the entire postseason. Clearly.
Well, I think that's going to be more down to an organizational structure.
Yeah, I feel like
analytics definitely do help, but in a scenario like Game 6, like you said, you need to get to Game 7. You got your horse on the mound. You got to let that ride to a certain extent.
And give your bullpen a break for a game.
Yeah.
If he could have gone 8 and all I had to do was use one pitcher and then give those guys you have guys that can throw 100, but if you use them enough times, those arms throwing 100 miles per hour as much as they have, it's going to fucking kill you.
Well, but then on the flip side of it, the offense only scored 1 run, and then I didn't do it either.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
and they had multiple opportunities.
That rookie cannot do it all by himself. That rookie had arguably the best postseason in history and didn't win the World Series. And he needed support. But
so here's my question.
Yeah.
What team is he going to next?
Yeah,
because you know he ain't going to be there long.
The Rays ain't going to be able to pay him. No, but which one of those teams do you think have a better shot of being back in the World Series? Or do you think we might see both of them? Or what's your thoughts for next year?
I feel like next year the Dodgers, depending on how everything goes with COVID and if they're going to offer these players, Dodgers are going to they're getting David Price. They did all this without David Price. Mm-hmm. And they're only going to be the same. They're bringing back the same team, basically. Mm-hmm. And then the Rays, they're going to be the Rays. They're going to have great pitching. They're going to maybe win their division again because it's arguably just a 2-team race. So if you have to put your money on a horse, I would put it on the Dodgers again, just to be on the safe side.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any last comments before we get rid of baseball for a little while?
Nope, we're good to go.
It's wild to me that I feel like 2 weeks ago we were talking about 4 or 5 separate sports, and now we're just down to football.
Yeah, there was about a month ago where it was like every single sport playing significant games. And now, Michael and I went to the restaurant last night, Ken's, Kurz.
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 Went to Kurz.
We went to Kurz, and there was nothing on. There was soccer. That was it. Yeah. Because the World Series just ended. There's no hockey. There's no basketball. There's no football on Wednesday. It was like, damn.
Yeah, they decided to have on the NFL Network the freaking 2013 Super Bowl. Fucking Patriots Giants. I'm like, I hate you guys.
Well, I also have to say about baseball is that I got to give it up to them. They did a really good job with COVID until the last game of the year with Josh Turner.
Yeah.
That's the last game of the year. He won the World Series.
Yeah.
Well, once they got into the bubble, though,
you can't sit there and tell me they had one test and then in that same morning they had quick testing. They knew that he was positive. I feel like they knew he was positive, but wait to the 8th inning.
Well, and it's the same thing going back and looking at football. football the first month or month and a half, there were no positive tests. And then all of a sudden, the Titans had their blow up.
I think,
and it's like, wait, had they been testing all along? Because there were like 3 teams today alone that shut down their facility because of a positive
I feel
test.
like NFL's learning as they go. Because you see now, like Giants had one person test positive, and then they trace who's been on there. All right, we're going to send these guys to fuck home. Where they've came up with a way where they can still keep the season going and be smart about it. Mm-hmm. So, and unless a huge breakout happens, I feel like we'll be able to get through this entire season in the NFL.
Yeah. We'll see, but we're talking plenty about the NFL later on. Let's talk about a discussion that we sparked up this morning because I saw a Instagram post by John Bones Jones talking about himself being the greatest. Sent it to you two because I agree. Scott, you clearly have some feelings about this that you want to let out, so let's hear it because the late great Khabib just retired. So,
Which, congrats to Khabib, and arguably one of the greatest careers in UFC history. He went in there with a broken foot 3 weeks out from breaking it and demolished somebody who I thought was going to give Khabib, maybe this was the guy. And in the middle of the fight, he just goes, "Oh, I'm not going to give you an arm bar because I'm trying to watch out for your health." So he went for a triangle choke instead. He was literally in control the entire time. But to get to John Jones's thing about calling himself the GOAT, in my eyes, in UFC, he is the GOAT. The whole GOAT argument is, like I was just telling Jacob, it's a matter of opinion. It's a make-believe list.
oh yeah.
You're always going to have that argument where you could say this, you could say that. You're never going to have a defined list. If you want to go MMA in general, as a whole, I would say Khabib is the GOAT. In UFC, it's John Jones because it's more of what have you done for me lately. Mm-hmm. John Jones has the most title defenses. He's been, rather y'all want to say the last few fights of his, he hasn't looked like the actual John Jones. It doesn't matter. It still hasn't lost. Yep. Khabib's only had 4, maybe 5 fights in the UFC entirely. And we'll never get to know what would happen between him and Tony Ferguson. So you can keep this going forever. You can say Khabib is the GOAT in MMA, but John Jones is the GOAT in UFC for what he has done in his rap sheet so far and who he has beaten in the UFC. So, and like I said, the GOAT argument will always continue like we do the Michael Jordan, LeBron, we do Tom Brady and Joe Montana. You know, there's, even though Tom Brady's won all the Super Bowls, there's still people that feel like Tom or Joe Montana's the GOAT.
Joe Montana.
So you can keep this going forever, but in my opinion, John Jones is the GOAT in UFC. In MMA, it's Khabib as a whole. I hate guys, by the way, that just tell me they're the fucking GOAT too. No, fuck you. We know you're good, but don't fucking tell me you're the GOAT.
That was the same thing that happened with LeBron.
Yeah, don't fucking tell me you're the GOAT.
That was the same reaction. Like, you can't give yourself that name. Someone has to put that upon you.
Let's all remember where the GOAT started. Tom Brady.
Joe Montana?
No.
Joe
They started the greatest of all time conversations with Brady. Who's the greatest of all time? Is it Montana? Is it Brady?
I'm sure they've been doing that a long
And then when Brady won Super Bowl number 5 is when they started calling Tom Brady the GOAT. And that's where GOAT started.
I don't think that's initially where it started.
All right. Good fact check. Scott Facts. Hashtag Scott Facts.
Hashtag eat a dick.
All right. On that, let's get away from the UFC and let's transition real quick over to college football because all Power 5 conferences are back. And the Big Ten, there's a little bit of controversy going on with the Big Ten. Who wants to start us off? Scott?
Okay. I feel like the Big Ten, they ultimately gave the players what they wanted, but they did it like, hey, guess what? We're going to give you what you want, but we're going to give you no wiggle room. And then they literally give them 8 games. And then in case of any breakout ever, like Wisconsin's quarterback had a hell of a game, shut down for 3 weeks, can't come back on the campus because he contacted COVID. Now more players have gotten it. They were supposed to play a game on Saturday against Nebraska. They said, nah, you shit out of luck. That's fucking no contest. So they literally gave themselves no wiggle room at all to reschedule their games. Unlike the SEC and other conferences, they had plenty of months to be like, oh, like we had the incident at Florida. They're like, all right, we're going to fucking do that game later on this year. So to me, if Big Ten's going to be this petty in this whole situation and take it out on the players, then unfortunately the college playoff has to look at that and not consider them for any votes for the top 10 or top 25.
As we continue on the conversations, all I keep thinking about is you talking about not wanting to be on the playoff committee and the selection committee this year over most, and week after week, and more items like this happening are proving why. It must suck to be them.
Because Cincinnati and BYU are probably going to, if they continue what they're doing, and you can't consider any of the Big Ten teams, them two could probably be in the college playoff, which would be fucking wild.
Well, again, that was the reason why they made the college football playoff, is for the little guys.
Yeah.
Now, so to me, this isn't necessarily all on the Big Ten. It is on a grand scheme of things because they chose in the very beginning, we're not going to play. And then when the ACC, the SEC, they said, no, we are going to play. We're going to modify our schedule to a certain extent. We're going to have some wiggle room. The Big Ten, the Pac-12, now going back on it, they have to do this short, condensed schedule to be up to par with the other schools. And it's potentially the NCAA that is forcing that, because if you're looking at the NCAA, and Dabo Swinney was a big advocate for this, saying, well, this is bullshit. We can't play the same amount of games and start a month ahead of them. Because if that's the case, our players are going to be sitting around waiting for a month, which, depending on how you look at it, could be an advantage, could be a disadvantage, waiting for the other teams to finish to then go into a college football playoff. So what they're trying to do is have everyone finish at the same time, so that way everyone's on the same level playing field. You have the week or two off, then go into the college football playoff. So I don't necessarily believe it's all on the Big Ten for that, but it's originally on their decision to sit out this year and then come back on it to then force them to play in this strict schedule.
Well, what got Big Ten going in the first place?
The other conferences.
No. The players, Nebraska, Wisconsin, schools like this painted the president of the Big Ten in a bad light.
Well, yeah,
because
the other conferences were playing.
Other conferences, even high schools. So like in Ohio alone, they were having high school football, but they weren't playing. So Big Ten finally caved. I don't care what anyone tells me. They caved because they got tired of being painted in a bad light. But they're like, all right, these fuckers want to embarrass us. We're going to give them 8 games and no room at all to do anything.
So the ACC had 10. They have 8.
Yeah.
They had to do it in that time frame in order for everyone to qualify. So if everyone does their part and doesn't go out, doesn't do the other things, they could play their 8 games. They could be an 8-0 Ohio State. And that's still going to be good, potentially good enough for the college football playoff.
I feel like,
but if you're sitting there waiting for, and this is where it comes to a negative light for the teams like the ACC and the SEC, if there's a 1-loss Georgia team, but they haven't played in a month, where the college football committee is sitting there watching the Big Ten and the other schools, and then there's a 1-loss Ohio State team, but maybe Ohio State's loss was early, but now they're all of a sudden playing really well. Well, what's fresh in their mind? How Ohio State's playing really well, and they might ignore what Georgia's been doing.
They can't ignore Georgia though, because of their strength of schedule.
Strength of schedule doesn't necessarily.
It does matter because there's nobody in the Big Ten that's even up to the superb to who Georgia faces.
Because Ohio State is that superb team in the
and
Big
that's
Ten.
it. That's all they have.
But they have a couple other ranked schools.
They have Michigan State. They have Michigan.
Michigan State's out this year. It's
okay.
Michigan,
Iowa
Wisconsin,
State, Penn State.
Not Iowa State. Iowa,
Penn
State.
Yeah, Michigan.
So,
that's
but those are good teams.
Exactly.
But they're good teams. But they're not.
They're not Alabama.
They're not Alabama. But they're not schools like that.
I get it, but Ohio State is the Alabama of the Big Ten.
Yeah. So how much does that rank? So how much does that rank coming down to the end of the season?
So that's why they had to make it a short schedule, to put everyone at the same time. The season's over. Now we all pick together. Instead of, hey, their season's over. We're going to wait a month for them. We're going to let the Big Ten, the Pac-12 play the same amount of games, but it is extended another month.
This will be the most controversial top 4 pick.
Excellent.
Since college football.
Yeah,
Potentially. I don't know. I think when it gets down to in another month or two from now, I don't think it's going to be controversial.
I feel like the Big Ten was being petty in the whole situation. They were rooting for this to fail, and they were rooting to go, I told you we shouldn't have done this. That's the mentality that they came in with this, with the rules that they gave their players. and the
Said the
teams
same thing
in
about
that.
the Pac-12 too. I mean,
Yeah, but they had more of a landscape to give them to reschedule games.
But
But they don't have one now.
But this, you also, I don't think you can be too critical on them, because on the flip side of it, let's say it did fail, and the ACC and the SEC and players died. Would we not be praising the Big Ten for being the first to say no, we're not going to play?
I think it's tough because the NCAA.
So I don't think you can be too harsh on either side.
I feel like it's tough because you need to go up the ladder. The NCAA themselves should have, from the get-go, been like, we're either playing football or we're not playing football. The fact that they put the decision to the conferences is the reason we're having this argument, and the reason the Big Ten is having the struggles that they're having right now.
Exactly.
I feel like Big Ten should never even joined in. I feel like if you're going to give these, if they were giving these rules, I understand the players wanted to play, and they put the Big Ten president on blast. I understand that, but when you're starting in November and knowing that there was going to be no room if something like this happened and you had no chance of making the college playoff,
They did it for the exact reason that you brought up in the beginning, though. They look like the bad guys. They're not playing. Their fans don't get to watch Big Ten football. They get to watch the SEC, the ACC, and all the other conferences that they hate. So the Big Ten started football back up because, you know what, everyone else is doing it. Why don't we? It's stupid.
And then they had to confine within the NCAA rules of finishing at a certain date in order to qualify for postseason play.
I honestly feel like the NCAA and the presidents of these conferences, they all have an agenda. And
they do.
whether people want to admit this or not, presidents and people that run these conferences have their own personal agenda politically, if they want to say that or not, to prove a point. And that's when their egos get involved as well. There's no way y'all can ever convince me that this president did not say, all right, these fuckers are going to put me on blast. I'm going to do this. It's not about money. It's about proving a point that these players were wrong and I was right.
I think that's a little far-fetched.
It's not a far-fetched. NCAA has been 100% one of those people that do that all the time.
I don't know. I disagree with the fact that Big Ten decided to come back and play football now is not on the commissioner saying, I'm going to prove you guys wrong.
It was a pressure of the players.
It's a
and
pressure
blasting.
of society.
It's-
Everyone
yeah.
else is playing football. Why aren't you?
That's what I'm saying.
But it's not just the players, and it's not just like, hey, I'm going to prove the entire country wrong. It's like, no, everyone wants it. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to give them what they want.
All right.
That's just how that's what I think.
You could be right and I could be wrong, or vice versa. But I'm just saying, from the NCAA to every conference, these people have personal agendas that they put into their decision making. Rather, people, will they ever come out and say that? No, but you can tell when people are talking about it.
All right, guys, these are conversations that I feel like we could have all night. And again, I know we talk about it every time we bring up college football. I think we need to start having longer college football segments in our podcasts. I mean, it's point proven. These conversations get cut off every time. So, again, fans, if you guys want to hear more about college football, comment below. Let us know.
Well, I mean, it'll happen next week when we don't have anything but football to talk about.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Now let's transition over to everybody's favorite segment. We are on to week 8 and the halfway point of the NFL. Guys, let's go ahead and get started with our conversations of a second string quarterback who personally is what looks like an outcast on his team. Andy Dalton got demolished last Sunday on a very illegal hit, and not a single Cowboy stood up for him. I know Scott's pissed about it. What are your takes on that, Jacob?
I didn't actually see the video. So I didn't actually see the video. However, I could tell from just playing sports growing up, being a teammate, when a player gets hurt, you go see them. You know, regardless whether you're on the bench, whatever, like that's your teammate, that's your guy. So to hear that nobody went to his aid, I mean, think about Mason Rudolph last year when he got destroyed and Juju all the way downfield came sprinting over, and that's his backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, I don't know if it's necessarily disrespectful, but I think it's it shows multiple things to me. It shows a lack of unison from the team. Mm-hmm. It shows the fact that Mike McCarthy maybe doesn't have control of his team, and the fact that the Dallas Cowboys have potentially given up. They're already on their backup quarterback. They're already 2 and whatever. They're playing terrible. So I wonder if it's like they've all kind of given up and they didn't. It's one of those things where they're not looking back. They're just kind of going with emotions and that's it, which is terrible. But it's also the Dallas Cowboys we're talking about.
I feel like everything that you touched on is exactly how I feel. Whether he's a backup or not, they knew this is the second game with Dalton starting. They knew Dak is not coming back. Dak is not coming back. So he is your quarterback. He's the one that you look to. I don't care what people say about Andy Dalton. He's still a decent quarterback. Has a great career so far in the NFL. Maybe not in the playoffs or anything like that. But you give that man his respect. He's your teammate. Steelers did it. Marquise Pouncey got suspended and was kicking the shit out of Myles Garrett when he was down on the ground. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. There's no excuse for anybody on that team to not come over and be like, "Hey, John Bostic, fuck you," But they didn't even do that.
Not even a word was said to him. The linebacker got up and walked away like nothing happened.
Was there a flag thrown?
Oh,
yeah, he got ejected.
He got ejected for the game. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sorry as a teammate.
Yeah, that's very alarming.
How does your lineman
Yeah.
not even say a word?
That comes down to the coach and the culture that's going on in Cowboys locker room right now. Mm-hmm. Jerry Jones was to say there's not a leadership issue in there. Why the fuck are you trading all your veterans on defense away now? There obviously is.
Yeah, there's a huge leader. And, that's the problem. The leader has always been Jerry Jones. It's never been a leader in the locker room. Maybe it was Dak. Maybe it was Romo. But without either guy, it's Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones is controller of that team. Or his son is, whatever. So it doesn't matter what the coach is either.
I think by now, players are starting to understand that. I'm just to finish up with the Cowboys on this, is that, they for years now, they said, oh, it's the coach's problem. We don't have a good coach. Then you get a decent coach. And then the players are like, it's the coach's fault. I'm starting to think it's not the coaches, it's the players have to start admitting to their wrongs and their leadership issues and their ability because they are not playing.
So you'll take back every statement about Adam Gase?
That's a different.
I know. I had to read it.
It's totally different. For years now.
I know.
You could see it out there on the field. Like, eventually, these players that release statements saying the coaches can't coach into week 5, eventually you got to start pointing the finger at yourself.
Well, I think it's time to sound the alarm in Dallas, and another city that it's damn close to needing to sound the alarm is Foxborough. So, Scott, I know you're pretty excited to talk about this conversation.
First of all, we were sounding the alarm when Tom Brady left. Come on, let's be real. We knew Cam Newton was meant to be a Band-Aid, which we weren't even sure if he was going to be good. Coming off multiple surgeries, hadn't been very good the last couple of years. This was a pipe dream, him coming in. So, to say that...
Pipe dream that worked great until he got diagnosed with COVID.
Yeah, it worked great the first 3 games.
Look at the defenses he faced. Look at the defenses he faced.
It doesn't matter. It's not like Cam Newton is. I mean, maybe he still can be, and we've said that going back podcasts ago. However, again, let's not just assume after 3 games that the Patriots were going to be the Patriots of when they had Tom Brady. We all knew that there was a very possibility.
Way to flip the script, Jets fan. You were high as one on Cam Newton from day one.
I was, and now it's not working, is it? They're 2-4.
But what can we say here?
He's played like shit the last 2 weeks.
You damn right he has.
What changed?
That's why I asked, is it time to sound the alarm?
No, because it was time to sound the alarm in the offseason. Because we had talked about that.
Alarm was sounded. They brought in Cam.
What changed?
But it's not necessarily meaning Cam is the complete answer.
What changed in between the 3 games to now? What, besides the whole COVID thing, what changed? Because you started to see it before he had COVID a little bit as well. So what would you say is the moment? Did they get away from running a little bit more of a running team, or did they try to pass the ball too much? Because Or is it lack of weapons?
I might be too close to this conversation, but you can't say that you started to see it before COVID because the only bad play you can really go back to is him trying to run the ball on 4th and 1 at the end of the Seahawks game.
He didn't look as sharp during the Raiders game, but that was more or less them running.
Dominated the Raiders.
It was more or less the running, like they were running the ball more. And it feels like now the defenses are keying in on the run. And now they're forcing Cam Newton to pass. But Cam Newton is having a hard time. I don't know if maybe it's lack of receivers.
He also doesn't have receivers to throw to, exactly.
Which is what Tom Brady dealt with last year. But also Tom Brady's a better quarterback than Cam. It's still Cam's first year with McDaniels.
And then
all I'm saying is we knew that Cam was a Band-Aid. I was very hopeful. Yes, I was extremely hopeful for your sake. I mean, I wish this is my dream, is that they are being bad.
You're sitting here wishing you guys were 2-4.
No, I would much rather be 0-6 than 2-4 because then we'd be stuck with a worse draft pick.
Yes.
And
I'd rather be at this point.
Double teaming Edelman, so they're making him forced to throw to receivers that have not proven themselves.
He's out for a month.
Yeah, now he has nobody except for N'Keal Henry, which you would think Harry,
who's also out.
So I have to ask the main question on the table right now. If he has another performance like he did against San Francisco and there's no light there at the end of the tunnel, is it time to bring in Superman, Jarrett Stidham?
Jesus Christ. Stidham threw an interception as soon as he went into the game last
That wasn't his fault, you know damn well.
Oh, God.
It's possible.
Yeah, it definitely
It's definitely possible. If they lose to Buffalo, they drop to 2-5.
Yeah.
And Buffalo is then 6-2.
Because it
Here's
gives
my thing. If they lose to Buffalo, it depends how they lose. If it's a close game that comes down to the
then-
wire,
then
Cam's fine.
Yeah.
If it's another San Francisco nightmare,
Yeah.
he's done.
Because I feel like you're going to come to a point in the season where you got to go, all right, Cam Newton was, good sign, and it's not working out. But we got to at least see what Stidham has for the future. If he's not our guy, then we got to start looking towards the draft and start thinking about our future coming
I
up.
think New England's proven that Jared Stidham's not their guy.
Well, not yet. He hasn't given a full reign saying, hey, here's the keys. Fucking run the offense the way a game plan built around his type of playing ability. Not coming in halfway when Cam Newton just had a dumpster fire of a game.
So let's say Cam, and I know we got to kind of speed up on this, but really quickly, if Cam has that bad performance, and then they decide, all right, second half of the season is Stidham, and he's average.
Then you have to draft a quarterback.
Okay.
You have to.
That's fair. Well, it is the end of the first half of the season, and we're getting close to trade deadline. So, is there any key trades you guys are kind of hoping to see happen in the NFL?
I would like to see the Browns. They're still in it, and they have the cap space. They just lost Odell Beckham, so they can probably go out and get like a Kenny Stills or who's the other guy out there in Texas? Not Brandon Cooks, but Will Fuller. Because I think Texans, they need draft picks. Billy Bitch Tits traded all their draft picks away. They don't have anything for their future. Stephon Gilmore's, someone said that they're still out there possibly shopping him around. I think after this game on Sunday, we'll figure out if he's going to be traded or not. Even though they gave him a pay raise, don't be surprised if he doesn't make a trade and maybe to the Browns.
I don't necessarily have any dream scenario trades or anything. It's more so about teams that are struggling or losing that they know that they're not.
A fire sale, basically.
Yeah. Do the veteran, for example, A.J. Green, who has stayed his entire career in Cincinnati and has played through injuries, been hurt, whatever you want to say about A.J. Green, but he's always been there in Cincy. So do him a service, trade him to a team that needs him and could potentially win, and give him an opportunity to win a championship.
Tampa, if you're listening, you guys have enough players.
And that's a good point because there's two scenarios where I can see this working out. If New England's 100% serious about trading Stephon Gilmore, Texans could trade one of their wide receivers, get some help for Cam. Or trade him to Cincinnati, which they need help on defense, and get A.J. Green.
We are moving into Week 8, so Week 7 takeaways. Scott, why don't we start with you, bud? Anything?
I have two teams that have kind of surprised me and let me down. Number one is the Texans. I didn't think that they would be as bad as they are right now. As bad as them being 1-5. And like They have a hard time closing out games. Obviously, firing your coach / GM in the middle of it. I knew that was coming. I called that from the beginning of the season. I didn't know it was going to happen in the middle of the season. I thought they would at least be a little bit more, maybe even compete for the division. But they are just like a shell of their former selves. And the main team to me that has surprised me is Carolina. Carolina, to me, has done average, but they are getting on a roll here. Teddy Bridgewater is playing not great, but he's playing good, and they've been winning games without Christian McCaffrey. So that shows them that they can actually compete in games without their star running back, which they should be getting back. I don't know if he's back tonight. I know he practiced this week, but he's slowly coming back, and they're still in the wild card hunt. So they are very surprising to me this year.
My Week 7 takeaway, kind of going back to the Cowboys, maybe Dak Prescott was worth the $40 million.
Oh, I agree.
Because they have averaged over 30 points a game when he was in the lineup. In the 2 games, game and a half with Andy Dalton, whatever, they've not scored more than 15, 17, something like that.
They threw in the towel as soon as he got hurt.
So
all the players.
Now,
is it now we're thinking, okay, maybe he's not the quarter, like when you're comparing quarterbacks and they deserve this much money, but then when you compare like a team MVP, maybe he is worth that much money to that team.
Does he even want to come back to them? That's the thing now. You're sitting on the outside looking at.
He loves. If Dallas will give him a fair shake, he will go back to Dallas. If Dallas toys him around for another year, if I was Dak Prescott, I'd tell him to go fuck himself.
And that's the biggest thing in the NFL. I think
they have screwed with him too much.
The CBA, they already signed a deal for like however long it is. The players do not like the franchise tag thing. They hate it. It kind of hurts them in the long run. Obviously, look at what just happened. It's like you got your $35 million, but you got hurt. And we don't know, God hoping that he comes back and is still the same player. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a long road to recovery, but we've seen worse players come back from worse injuries. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens. My Week 7 takeaway is the freaking Arizona Cardinals. Did they make the offseason trade of the year? Was that the best trade that was made this year? DeAndre Hopkins going to Arizona, because that is a lethal connection, and they proved it by playing one of the toughest offenses in the league and taking them to overtime and winning the game.
Yeah, and Cliff Kingsbury, mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are shocked that how well he's doing as a head coach. I think you were very, Jacob, I don't know, I can't remember, were you very not high on Cliff Kingsbury?
It wasn't that I wasn't high on him. It was more so on the fact that this man was average at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Got fired, took an offensive coordinator job at USC, and then next thing you know, he's the head coach of the Cardinals. Like, he didn't even coach a game yet with USC.
He didn't have a good enough resume.
Job. Yeah, so his resume was kind of shaky to me. And then, of course, it's the air raid offense in college football. Typically has not translated to the NFL. But I think we're starting to see more and more that wide receivers are allowed a lot more space and allowed to do a lot more things than the defensive player. So, yeah, air it out all game long. Hope for penalties.
Especially Kyler Murray's coming from a type of offense at Oklahoma.
That was similar.
Yeah.
So, and Cliff Kingsbury tried to recruit Kyler Murray out of Texas Tech. So he's always wanted Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm.
And remember at the time where Kingsbury took over, they still had Josh Rosen. And it was like, okay, well, you spent a first-round pick on Josh Rosen last year. Why would you use the number 1 overall pick on Kyler Murray? Well, he's so far proving a lot of people right with that.
The reason for it. Be curious to see where this goes in the coming weeks. Week 8 preview. Who wants to start us off?
Miami Dolphins.
Ooh.
3-3.
Ooh.
Playing a good playoff team.
Ooh, all right, we're done with that.
Still in the playoff hunt. But it's Tua time.
It is Tua time.
It is Tua time, which we all disagree with because, like we just mentioned,
I think we made our point very clear last week.
Dolphins are 3-3, still in the playoff hunt, but it's Tua time. I'll be very curious to see what happens this Sunday, because if the Dolphins win and Tua plays well, we're in trouble. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and Michael.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like the Dolphins are one or two key players away from being a hell of a team.
Mm-hmm.
My Week 8 preview is the Chicago Bears and New Orleans Saints. Two teams who have winning records, who teams are doing well in their division and in a playoff hunt. But just two teams who I feel like have done nothing but try to grind it out until they've gotten here. Saints have been riddled with injuries while the Bears are trying out with a new quarterback who is on some weeks and off on others. I mean, every time I bet against Nick Foles, I lose. But I feel like this game is, even though they have winning schedules, this is a statement game. Because if the Bears can beat the Saints, that is nothing but just positive energy going through that entire locker room that we just took down the New Orleans Saints. And if the Saints beat the Bears, they beat a 5-2 team. So they could be proud of that too and move on. While the other team is gonna have a harder loss to deal with. I feel like this game is way bigger than we think it is for the middle of the season because I feel like it's gonna determine the second half of the season.
I feel like there's something going to be brewing there in Chicago. Nick Foles, if you break it down, they've only had one pass longer than 40 yards this entire season. And there were some rumors about him and the coach not being on the same page on play calling. There could be something brewing there. I could be wrong. But my Week 8 game I want to watch is the Detroit Lions versus the Indianapolis Colts. Colts came out like a rocket. Their defense was great. Phillip Rivers was not turning over the ball, but then Phillip Rivers started being Phillip Rivers and started forcing the ball a lot and started doing the same shit that he had problems with when he was with the Chargers. Detroit, on the other hand, they're starting to play some good football in Detroit. DeAndre Swift is coming around. Matthew Stafford, again, can we say he's arguably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL?
I've always said it.
I agree.
I've always said it.
And it's just, that man, I wish he could go on get a playoff run for once. And just see what he could do.
He's always been surrounded by the worst supporting cast. Like the most consistent worst supporting cast ever.
Didn't they have a really good season one year? Like they went like 12-4, 11-5 with Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
And then in first round.
Yeah. Something like that.
And I think that's
The
his
glory
only,
days.
I think that's put together 2 or 3 good seasons.
Yeah, I think he's only been in the playoffs like once or twice. Yeah. And it's just, he always goes up against the number 1 seed, and somehow it's always Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly.
But I feel like he's the most underrated quarterback in football. They're playing great football. They got Everson Griffin recently from the Cowboys, which he's an all-pro, Pro Bowler. Get some help on the defensive side. And I think this is, at least we're seeing that the players are still playing for Matt Patricia. And they're still playing like they want to be there in Detroit. So that's a positive sign to me. Mm-hmm. And I got to give it to, like, Bill Belichick's like the Nick Saban of the NFL. Because a lot of these assistants, Patricia's showing it in Detroit, and Brian Flores down there in Miami, like you just said, he's changing everything down there in Miami. And it's all related to Bill Belichick. So.
Well, I mean, there is also Billy Bitchsits, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, butt chin could
there's more positive than
he's the Lane Kiffin of the NFL.
Basically, yeah. So.
All right, guys. Well, we got some big games this week, so why don't we transition right into pick'ems? Who wants to start us off? Thursday night game's going to start here at about 20. Falcons versus the Panthers.
I got Panthers defense, and I feel like both defenses are shaky, but I'm going Panthers on this one.
I'm going Panthers as well. They've been the more consistent team when it comes to wins, losses, but I wouldn't be shocked if Atlanta somehow pulls it off.
You know, I'm going Panthers as well. I just feel like it's going to be a Atlanta loses the game for themselves kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that sounds about normal.
Yep.
Clearly.
Sunday at 1 p.m., a huge AFC North showdown. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Jacob, let's start with you.
I got the Steelers staying undefeated. Baltimore, as Scott always liked to say in the very early weeks of the NFL season, has the easiest schedule in the league. They haven't really been tested outside of Kansas City, which they lost. And they lost kind of badly. So I got Pittsburgh pulling out the win. Right. Especially after pulling off a nice win last week against another previously undefeated team in the Titans.
I'm going to back you on that one. Scott's talked about it all season long, and I probably just stole his main point of this argument. That interior seven on that defense is unbelievable. And what is the Ravens' number one weapon? Their running game. The quarterback running the ball, Mark Ingram running the ball, and passes here and there. They shut down the running game. The Ravens got nothing.
Scott, we can go ahead and skip. You already wrote you down as picking the Steelers. So.
Is there a reason why you're picking the Steelers?
Well, the reason why the Steelers to me are the only 6-0 team that people are still not giving any credit to. They've averaged 25 plus points.
Whoa. Everyone. Who had them number one in our power rankings last
That's
week?
us.
All of us?
That's us.
Yeah, we're damn good.
Yeah.
I had the Titans.
Yeah, he had Titans.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Never mind. We'll leave it to the experts, okay?
We have averaged 25 points a game, every game this year. We've averaged 25 points. Everybody's like, well, they kind of let the Titans back into it. Yeah, but the Titans were 5-0. But if you could come out and put up 24, 30 points in the first half alone and still rely on your defense to close out the game, that's a hard hole to come back from. I'm not saying that they should do that against the Ravens, but I'm saying that's a hard. Okay.
No, keep going.
I'm saying it's a hard thing for teams to come back from.
So I completely agree with you. And before we move on to the 4 o'clock game, I want to ask you, are you still going to sweat bullets like you did last week if there is a Ravens starting to come back by a deficit of that?
Yes. I'm always going to have that type of mentality with any game. And it's a different mindset when it comes to the Ravens. It's the best rivalry in football, I feel like.
Allegedly.
Ain't no allegedly. They have the best. Steelers were able to shut down Lamar last year, but still lost and had him throw 3 interceptions. And we didn't have a quarterback. Here's the wildest stat. This is the first game Lamar Jackson is playing where Big Ben is starting quarterback.
Yep. Because he's only started one game against the Steelers previously.
Yeah, did you know he averaged about 150
He's actually started 2 games ago.
No, he's only started one
last
time.
year.
Yeah, one time.
Joe Flacco was not on the team last year.
Okay, well, it was the previous year.
Yeah,
why did he only start one game? Was he injured? And RG3? No, he didn't start because it was the last game of the season. RG3 was in.
That's right. Yeah,
he literally was only
started. I forgot about that. But it's still.
we fact checked.
Yeah, we
Sorry about it.
But it's still the only game hasn't played that Big Ben wasn't the starting quarterback. So that has some due diligence to it. And Big Ben is really good against the blitz this year. So I have the Steelers, like I predicted last week, that they won by a field goal. In your face, Michael and Jacob. That the Steelers.
Finish.
We're going to win.
You want fuck on Chow?
Steelers win by 4.
Who's 3 for 3 in picking championship teams this year?
Oh, here we go.
You want to talk about winning by 3? Well, I got 3 of my own rings with champions. I picked the Lightning. I picked the Lakers. I picked the Dodgers. Suck on that one.
We're talking about NFL, though.
Well, you want to rub it.
You want to throw in my face that I just picked.
You want to rub it in.
Listen. If you guys want to keep having a who has a bigger dick contest, we could do that after the podcast. Let's talk 4 p.m. We got Seahawks and the 49ers. Jacob, Mr. 3 for 3. What do you got?
Seahawks. 49ers last week was a fluke.
A fluke?
A fluke.
A fluke.
A fluke.
Okay.
I don't think they're that good. Because their defense is so hurt. And the offense, the receivers aren't healthy, running backs aren't healthy. We said it before the season that the Patriots' defense was not going to be that great. They've overachieved and played really well, but they got exposed last week. And I don't think it's because the 49ers are this great offense. They have never been a great offense. Seahawks are against that hurt 49er defense. I like the Seahawks.
All right. Scott, what about you?
Seattle.
That it?
Yeah.
All right. Guys want to talk about 3 points, 3 championships? We're going 3 for 3 on 3 of our picks.
Nice.
Seahawks. Let's move on.
Well, damn, this is going to be boring.
It is going to be boring.
Week.
Well, hey, you know what? We could shake it up with these last 2 games. Sunday, 8 p.m.
Sunday,
8 p.m.
These next 2 games, we're about to talk about 3 out of the 4 teams in the worst division in football. So...
Well, you never know. Sunday at 8 p.m. someone could try to do it.
And the team that we probably would have picked, well, yeah, they're down to their 3rd string 7th round draft pick, rookie quarterback. So yeah, I doubt
Dalton's
anybody.
still out?
Dalton's not playing. I
Yeah,
doubt
James
anybody-
Madison, baby, let's go. He is. He's from
James
JMU.
Madison. I was like, that's not his name.
Yeah,
I can't
the
pronounce
fourth
it.
president coming out of the works.
I know that's not. I know that's not his name. I can't pronounce it, but I know that's not his
That's
name.
not the
but okay.
Constitution. What's
All
up?
right, guys, Cowboys, Eagles. Should we all say it at the same time? 1,
Eagles.
2,
Eagles.
3, Eagles.
Eagles.
And Monday, Bucks, Giants. I mean, that's going to be a pretty close game, don't you think?
Bucks.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Scott, did we all pick the same team?
That was a clean
Hey,
sweep.
I blame the NFL for making these shitty Thursday and Sunday night game football. Like, what do you want from me?
Well, let's
They
be
definitely-
honest.
they
Cowboys
definitely
Eagles
should've.
normally isn't a bad game.
They should have flexed a few games, but the CBS was not willing to give up Steelers Ravens. They said.
No, of course not. Well, they could have flexed it to Monday night and screw their other marketing. their
ESPN
other-
doesn't do that. They pre-select.
Well, no,
They
I mean,
stick with it.
ESPN could have stuck with what they wanted, and the CBS could have been like, oh, well, they had positive tests. They have to reschedule and play on Monday.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, no, because CBS broadcasted that.
Yep.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. CBS could have flexed it themselves.
That'd be some shit, wouldn't it?
I think it would be against the rules, but
That'd be pretty funny. What do you mean there was no positive COVID test? Why are you guys playing on Monday? Fucking worry about it.
because it's the game of the week.
All right, guys. So we went 5 for 5 on all of our pick'ems. Let's see if we're 5 for 5 on our top 5. We haven't been
Ooh.
close. We haven't been close yet. So how do you want to roll it? Do you want to roll it like we used to, or you want to roll it like we did last week? Where you
Last
go 5
week.
to 1 and go down the list.
Last
Yeah,
week.
Scott liked the 5-1. Let's
I
get
did
5-1.
too. Name your team. Why you're picking them. Move it.
You want me to go?
Sure do.
Okay. Number 5, Seattle.
All right.
There it goes.
Wait.
We already lost it.
Oh, really?
I have
Seattle.
I have Seattle at number 5 because defensively it finally showed on Sunday night. Still have a good offense. You know, Russell Wilson threw 3 picks, but he still looked sharp. Number 4, I have the Packers. They actually came out to play last week. They were, even though it was against the Texans, I still have questions on that defense. But Aaron Rodgers is more likely probably going to win MVP this year. Number 3, I have the Tennessee Titans. They didn't go far down my list because they faced another 5-0 team, and they did show, and that was their 3rd game in 13 days. But I still think they're going to bounce back against Cincinnati. Number 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. They face the Jets Sunday. That's going to be a murder. Sorry, Jacob, but they're running high right now, and they got Le'Veon Bell. And number 1, the team to beat is the 6-0 Pittsburgh Steelers right now. There's nothing you could say. You know, their secondary has some questions, but you can't deny the fact that they have been very dominant on defense.
They've been the best team.
And Ben Roethlisberger, he threw 3 interceptions. 2 of them were tip passes. Not taking that away from him. You know, he still says, I got to play better. And he's striving, and he's still playing great football. 14 touchdowns, 4 picks. Connor's going. The whole entire team's running as a whole. So they remind me of the Boston Celtics. Just want to say this final point. They remind me of the Boston Celtics. They have 5 guys on that offense that can probably score like the Celtics do, like any game in the night, and be the guy. You got James Washington, you got Claypool, you got Juju, you got Deontay Johnson, and you got Eric Ebron. To me, they're the most complete team in football right now.
Before I get into my Power 5, you talked about the Chiefs blowing out the Jets. And I was telling Michael last night, I might do a parlay bet where you put, 3 bets, and I want to do the one with the Jets and the Chiefs. Chiefs covering the spread of 19.5. It would be my luck to pick the Chiefs to cover that spread and win by more, and then the Jets end up losing by like 3. It would be my luck.
Ends up being the Chiefs defense don't show up. Jets start having some freaking blowout plays.
Oh my god, that would be my luck.
Guaranteed. I don't listen, man. I'm so tired of making bets. I don't think I've won a bet in forever. Jacob, let's hear your top 5, bud.
So my top 5, starting at 5, I have the Titans there. Last week I had them at 4, so they drop a little bit. I was debating with the Ravens, but I think this week we'll get to see if the Ravens can somehow pull off what I guess we would all consider an upset, since we all picked Pittsburgh to win. I would move the Ravens up, but right now I got the Titans. Like you mentioned, Scott, they lost to the only other undefeated team by a field goal, so I mean, they're still a solid team. I still have my questions about Ryan Tannehill as well as the defense. Number 4, I got Seattle. even though they had a tough loss against Arizona, I mean, Arizona's 5-2. They're a damn good football team themselves. And I would probably pick Arizona over Tennessee if they were to play.
I need one more win out of Arizona.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I have the Titans there ahead of them. But Arizona is, with that offense, they're just very dynamic.
Them and Bucks almost cracked my top 5.
And so that's why I got Seattle at 4, dropping a little bit. I still believe in Russell Wilson and that team. They just got a trade with Carlos Dunlap, addressing the defense. So maybe that's going to help. Number 3, you mentioned that they were just outside your top 5. Number 3, I got the Bucks. Tom Brady is wheeling and dealing. I'll be interested to see what happens with Antonio Brown if he comes in and screws up the whole thing. But, and it's funny because we were talking last week about bringing Antonio Brown to Seattle and how that was going to screw up Seattle. Well, I mean, Tampa Bay is on the the same side of it. They've been playing really well lately. Then you bring in Brown. Defense has played well. Tom Brady's heating up. The offense has been great. Ronald Jones has stepped up tremendously. Number 2, I got the Chiefs, same as you. They're still elite. And then number 1, Steelers. Again, best team in football.
All right. We're close. Jacob, yours and you're my top 5 are very close. I do want to start real quick with some honorable mentions because it was really hard to pick a number 5.
It was.
You know what? The Packers,
Ravens,
Titans
and
the Ravens.
all right
I
there.
agree.
Fuck the Ravens.
So what I did is I decided that, you know what, I can't give up on Seattle yet, so I put them as number 5. That defense, Scott is right. You saw the holes in it. You saw what happened. Russell Wilson had a fluke game. 3 interceptions doesn't happen for that man. So it's...
Wait, he threw 3 interceptions?
Yeah, I think that's like this.
He still had 29 points in his standard.
DK freaking Metcalf, though. Jesus Christ.
I didn't realize that man ran that fast, but...
Now that, sir, is a speedster.
Listen,
go fuck yourself.
I think Seattle's back to vengeance this week. I think the 49ers don't have a fucking chance, and that's another reason why I'm keeping them in my top 5 is as a prediction for this weekend. Number 4, it's tough because I still want to call them the second best team in the league. The Tennessee Titans, they had a tough first half, but then came back and scared the shit out of every Pittsburgh Steelers fan and player probably on that team. Derrick Henry got rolling, that offense got moving, and the defense started shutting them down, and I could not believe that it came down to a missed field goal. Number 3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, so damn, we were flipped on 4 and
told
5,
you, yeah.
but everything else was right.
Number 3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You are right. Tom Brady is rolling, and they have just been steamrolling every team they're playing, and they're going to continue that this week. Their next true test is going against the New Orleans Saints, but they're playing in Tampa, and I feel like it's going to be a very, very different Bucs teams that the Saints play in Tampa Bay. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. It's hard to bet against them when they look as good as they do. Sometimes the defense shows up, sometimes it doesn't, but the defense has been showing up when it counts the most. And that is a team who is still going to be top AFC. If Pittsburgh Steelers, my number 1, don't end up taking them off their current throne that they're sitting on. 6-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, number 1 all-around football team, best team in the league, giving it to them right now. That's my top 5.
You mentioned a great point about the Chiefs. The defense shows up when they want to, and that's why I won't make that bet because they're not going to show up this week, and the Jets are going to score like 30 points.
Oh, man.
You know what's crazy? Like you were talking about Derrick Henry. Steelers shut him down. He only had one good drive. He only rushed for 70 yards. This is a man who just came close to rushing for 300 yards.
70 yards is a good game for an
We have not given up a 100-yard rush.
70 yards is a good game for an average for any running back.
He's not an average running back.
I understand that, but you can't say that he had a bad game.
They held him in check.
They held him in check. You're absolutely right.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he had a bad game, but I'm saying...
Stop being mad because you guys almost tied the game and had to go.
No, he didn't almost tie anything.
You guys won by a missed field goal.
So?
They didn't let Derrick Henry beat them.
No, you're absolutely right. They did not. Doesn't mean he had a bad game.
I've heard like all fucking week. I'm not even going to get into it.
No, we got time.
We're the only 6-0 team where I don't even feel like we're 6-0. And that's the shit that pisses me off.
That's funny because the Patriots went 8-0 last year, and
Oh,
that's all the
my.
conversation was about how they didn't deserve to be there. So I know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying, I feel like we don't. Everybody's like, well, the Titans said this.
What? The Jets shouldn't be 0-7.
You know
We should've
what?
won again.
I'll back that. The Jets should not be 0-7. They should have won again.
Well, I'm just saying, dude. Like they have all the. Like I understand the mentality is you always gotta find a negative and a positive because you have to continue to be better. But the fact is, I just want someone to give the Steelers, besides us, our due diligence that we are a good football team. Before Titans, everybody was like, well, you haven't faced anybody. Then we faced a good team and shut out their best player and didn't let him beat us. Yeah, they kind of got back in the game and stuff like that, but at the same time, they
Give it time. It's hard for critics and it's hard for fans to get to back a team A that they're not fans of, or B, a team that's had a couple struggling seasons and now coming up playing dominant because they're waiting for the walls to fall. They're waiting for it.
And look at it from like the college football perspective. Cincinnati, North Carolina. We said that they should not be ranked in the top 10, but they were. Because the preseason hype and talk was that they weren't supposed to be that good. So when they were that good, no one wanted to give them credit. It's the same thing that's happening right now.
because the Steelers weren't supposed to be as good because
Exactly,
no one believed in Ben.
and that's why after only 6 games, which is almost halfway through the season, that's why they're not getting maybe the full credit they deserve, because it's not like we're talking about Kansas City being like that. That's why Kansas City gets the credit where they're at because, well, they won the Super Bowl. They're supposed to be there. So yeah, we're going to give them credit for being there.
I want to make one more point to you about that because I do agree that they're not getting enough credit because I saw something that you actually posted the other day, and it was about one of the most impressive passes that I've seen so far this year, where Ben Roethlisberger pitched the damn ball 20 yards for a first down.
Yeah,
That was unreal.
While he was going down, went like this. If it was freaking Patrick Mahomes, everybody, the fucking announcers would be wetting their pants.
That's why you need to stop listening to social media. But let me ask you a question. I know for a fact you're going to be watching the Ravens and the Steelers game this Sunday, right? What's another what to watch you got?
Another one I want to watch, I would say Colts and the Lions, like I said before. That's a game to me where the Colts are in a type of part right now where they're trying to figure out, do we give Jacoby Brissett the reins now? Do we give him? They gave him a contract extension, did they not?
Oh, yeah.
So they saw something in him. Bill Belichick's always been high on him. I think he kind of regrets ever trading him away as one of the players that he wishes that he would have kept.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really wondering if Phillip Rivers comes out and turns over the ball again, is a Brissett time in there?
What's their record?
That's good.
I think they're 4-2.
Yeah, because they had a bye week
They're
last week.
4-2, and although I mean going back to like the Ryan Fitzpatrick thing where we're talking, they're 3-3. There's no need to turn the keys over. But when you're talking about the Colts here, they're 4-2, and if Phillip Rivers continues to turn the ball over, we know they're a playoff team. We know that's a division they can win. So they're gonna, even though they're winning and they're above 500, they might make that quarterback switch because they might believe that the other quarterback makes them better to help them win.
You know what kind of bums me out? Different team, same Phillip Rivers conversations.
That doesn't bum me out at all.
It does. I've always liked Phillip Rivers. I was hoping he would do well when he went to Indianapolis.
I've never really liked Phillip Rivers. He's the biggest baby in the NFL. Bitches and moans.
Is that pun intended because he's got like 20 of them?
Exactly.
He's got his own.
He bitches and moans anytime his teammates.
He can't curse
snap the
either, so
ball
it's
or
so
do anything.
funny when he's
Dang Flabbit!
Dang, flab it, yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I've never really liked Phillip Rivers, and I've never really thought he's been like top tier.
So I'm assuming your what to watch is not the Colts and Lions. What is it?
Oh no, my what to watch this Saturday is something that I probably will not be able to watch, but it's something that you should watch. And it's not necessarily one event; it's multiple events. But it is another Saturday of big boxing. We have a big heavyweight fight that has big implications for a potential title fight in the heavyweight, and then we also have they've actually moved it down to it's super featherweight, fighting at 130, but two big fights that have big implications afterwards. Alexander Usyk against Derek Chisora, big heavyweight bout. That's going to be a complete battle. Those guys, it's not it's going to end in a knockout. And then Gervonta Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz. If Gervonta Davis wins, the dream fight to make is Gervonta Davis and Teofimo Lopez. So if I could watch, that's what I'd be watching. I've got a wedding reception to go to. Maybe I can pull it up on my phone a little bit and get a little drunky.
You know you gotta.
I'm gonna try to. Daddy.
Well, it's Saturday. The TV's on. I got college football going.
Yeet.
And, there's not a bunch of great games to watch this Saturday, but one game I am going to definitely be watching is 7:30 Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Penn State Natty Lions. Penn State ranked 18th. Just came off an overtime loss.
The Nittany Lions.
That's what I said, isn't it? I just want a beer. I think that's why I said Natty. Anyway.
Damn, you're right.
Penn State just came off a tough overtime loss, and Ohio State's rolling. I mean, one of the best teams in the nation, absolutely. But every time they play, it's dramatic. Every time they play, something ridiculous happens in that game, and that is exactly why I'm not going to have it off.
And I want to say they've alternated the last couple years.
They have.
Wins, losses for each team.
They have. Ohio State won last year, so we'll see if Penn State can flip the script again.
Maybe it's their year.
All right, boys. Any closing statements?
I do, because I just got this. Dana White came out and said that Khabib we have been talking. He was completely emotional the night he retired. When he got through that fight, I have a feeling that he may go for 30-0, which means he will be facing GSP to ultimately prove who the best grappler in UFC history is.
Isn't George St. Pierre like old as shit?
That's what I was thinking.
He's still in fighting shape though. I know it's
nonsense.
So is Tyson, but I mean, we're going to see what happens there in about a month.
Yeah, are we gonna watch that fight or
Oh
what?
hell yeah! We are. Actually, I'll be in Orlando. Sorry.
Son of a bitch!
Well, me and Mike will watch it.
All right, y'all. I'm Michael McCormick. To my right, Jacob Selpa Siesla, Scott Braveheart Baylor. We are East Coast Rivals, and we are out. Talk to you next week.
Yeet.